The most important person in the company are the people on the floor of the stores, because they're the ones that interact with the customer. We have 3,000 people that started pushing carts in from the lot. It's about as entry level as you get, that are multi-millionaires today. And I took him on, and you know what? I whipped his ass like he was a rented mule. My bill was $23 million, my legal bill. If he ever sticks his head up again, I got more. I wake up every morning, and when I put my American flag pin on my lapel, I look up at the ceiling and I say, Grandma and Grandpa, thanks for coming to America.
CEO and co-founder. Founding partner of Palantir co-founder.
Ken Langone is an extraordinary American. He's an entrepreneur, an investor, he's a fighter. Ken helped start Home Depot, which he's been helping build for over 40 years. He's the largest shareholder in companies like Eli Lilly. He's a personal mentor of mine and a friend. I'm really excited for you to meet him. One thing that's interesting about Ken is that when the government used lawfare against his friends, he stood up for them. And then the government came for him, and he fought back and he won. Some of the things we're seeing right now in our country with lawfare is the stuff that Ken dealt with and pushed back on and defeated the bad guys 20 years ago. Set a good role model for how you stand up strong, how you show courage, how you get people around you to show courage too. We need more Americans like Ken. I'm Joe Lonsdale. Welcome to American Optimist. We have a friend and mentor and great American, Ken Langone, with us today. Ken, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I'm honored to be asked.
It's amazing to see you. I want to ask you to start about Eli Lilly. This is things on fire. Stock's been on a tear. You're now the largest shareholder. How did that happen, and what's going on there?
I will only say I own a lot of stock, a whole lot of stock. And I've been told, although I don't know, that I'm the largest individual stockholder in the company.
How'd that happen?
It happened because there's two things I think work well for me: loyalty and patience. In 1977, I had a small medical device company in California by the name of IVAC Corporation. Lilly was very interested in getting into the medical device business. Mm-hmm. And bottom line was we made a deal with Lilly for Lilly to buy IVAC.
1977. So that means you've been a shareholder for
47 years.
So give us a crash course of your investment philosophy. Is this normal? You hold these things for a long time?
Yeah. My average holding is 42 years.
42 years on average.
Right, on average. I believe in getting to know management very well. I believe that the key to any great investment are the people at the end of the day. Sure, technology is important, but where does the technology
Doesn't management change multiple times during those periods?
And sometimes you have ups and downs. For example, we sold out in 77, and there was a palace revolution at Lilly, and the guy that had been made CEO for a year got fired, Vaughn Bryson. Mm-hmm. And they brought in a fellow who ran a phone company to be the head of the company. Bryson got fired, and the guy that was there that should have gotten the job was Sidney Terrell, who I knew very well. Mm-hmm. And Sidney stayed, thank God, and Sidney finally did get the job.
But you held, even though it was the wrong CEO for a while, because you thought it'd be fixed.
I knew how, I got to know the company. Well, by the way, when Lilly sold to me, they had a market cap of $2.5 billion, and they had sales of $2 billion.
It's pretty low market cap to sales.
And they gave us roughly 2.5% of Lilly for our company.
There's inflation in the economy, then things were valued really cheaply back then.
Yeah, but also, you know, unless you had by the way, a big drug then was $100 million a year.
Wow.
That was considered to be a successful drug.
What's their big drug doing now? Is it GLP-1 stuff they're doing now? Is it biggest?
Well, I think that Mounjaro probably by 2030, the pundits say, probably will be over $30 billion a year, and well over $30 billion. The whole market now is up to 100, those GLP-1s.
Amazing. You know, we're producing a few $1 billion for them with one of our companies right now, worth this stuff on the wholesale side. We're advanced biomanufacturing.
Oh, sure. Well, there's such great demand. They're in short supply, and that's them and Novo. Lilly, I think the profile on the Lilly molecule is far more beneficial than the Novo, but Novo's got a great product too. So anyway, I got it. I got to know the management. I got to know everybody in the company. I had enormous respect for them. I think they were conservative. They had a great balance sheet. And by the way, they had a nice dividend. So I took a company that was, by the way, IVAC, when I took control in 1972 in a proxy fight, had a market value then of $1.5 million.
Public company.
Public company.
$1.5 million.
Public by accident. The guy that was running the company, the guy that I threw out in the proxy fight, would take a packet of stock certificates and one of the devices they made, which is an electronic thermometer, and go to Las Vegas and go in the back where the band was and take out the thermometer, and he'd sell guys stock for $1 a share, $2 a share.
Crazy.
And that was his undoing because effectively we had to go in and register all those shares.
Then you have to go public when you have
We
too
were
many
public.
shareholders.
So
Yeah.
for 5 years we were public from the time we took control. But we got it cleaned up good. We put a good group of guys in to run it.
That's funny.
And it would, so anyway,
So you put a good group of guys in. What have you looked for in management and leadership? What does that mean to you?
first of all, I look for honesty. It'd be the basic stuff. I look for honesty. I look for wisdom in terms of breadth of thinking. Are they thinking provincially or are they thinking globally? Are they thinking about the opportunities and the possibilities? The thing I loved about Lilly's research was they had a strong franchise in antibiotics back then. They had a significant animal health business. Ironically, they owned Elizabeth Arden, the cosmetics company, which they eventually sold. But more importantly, they made their mind up. They wanted to go into medical devices in a bigger way. So they bought a cardiac pacemaker company. They bought a defibrillator company. They bought a number of companies related to devices. Most of the devices, of course, were related.
So integrity, expansive thinking.
And also, Joe, were they willing to stick their neck out and take chances? Research in R&D in pharmaceuticals is a high-risk business. And you got to spend a lot of money to be in the game. Lilly right now, this year, I think their budget, their R&D budget is going to be over $10 billion.
They're still taking risks. They're still being bold.
Well, they're doing, and included in their research are the cost of clinical trials.
Yep.
So you can't make a claim unless you go through significant.
Of course.
They've spent a lot of money developing these products and applying them to new markets.
Yep.
And the results look very, the point is, it's always about the people. So my focus always has been, I'm not a scientist. I don't know a molecule from a, whatever the hell else you want to call something scientific, but I know people and I have a pretty good nose.
What are you bullish on right now? Are there certain teams or certain areas?
Yeah, I'm bullish on a company right now called Option Care Health, at-home services, medical services. So for example, if you're a patient and you need a certain medication intravenously, they have pharmacies all over the United States. They ship the drug to the home for the next day. A nurse shows up the same next day,
That's amazing, yeah.
and the nurse does the administration there.
It seems like keeping things out of the health systems, you save a ton of money.
Well, you save money, but also it's safer. Lower infection rate. Believe it or not, hospitals are dangerous places.
The hospitals kill people by mistake.
Well, because the disease is in the hospital.
Yeah.
That's what the hospital is there for. So they got a hell of a good management. They had a weak start, but the guys that came in to run the company have pulled it together, and I'm very excited about that. And I've already owned that stock now almost 5 years, and we've done okay, but I think we'll do a lot better in the future.
Amazing. I want to ask you a little bit more about what it takes to be a leader. Your father was a plumber. Your mother was a cafeteria worker.
Right.
Neither of them went to high school. You started working at age 11 or 12. How did your upbringing shape you and help you become a leader?
I learned, for example, one of the things I won't take a back seat to is judgment of people. I got a pretty good nose for people. That talent or that ability became conscious to me when I was a caddy. And I'd caddy for people. There were two types. There were guys that if they had a bad shot, they didn't blame it on anybody else but themselves. And there were guys that if they had a bad shot, they're looking around, who's around that I can blame? And typically the guy that gets the punishment is the caddy.
The caddy, yeah.
But I learned close up, because these guys, don't forget, they think we're just mechanical. We don't evaluate, we don't observe, we don't do the things. I made it a point to studying the men I was caddying for and how they behaved and how they treated each other and how they talked to each other and how they treated the caddies. To this day, Joe, one of the things I love to do, if I'm being asked to evaluate somebody for a job in one of the companies, I like to take them to a meal. And I love to watch how they interact with a waiter. or the busboy? How do they talk to them?
Yep.
What's the tone of their voice?
How do they value them as people, you mean?
Exactly. Do they have empathy? Do they have the ability to make a bridge? I know if you have a waiter that feels good about you, for some mysterious reason, whatever, the service is always better.
Yeah.
I'll be right back, or I'll bring you this, or I'll bring you, oh, you want this? I'm sorry.
It shows awareness of what matters to them, too. Yeah.
That's the whole point. That's their life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really disturbed, I was having been in that category myself, you don't feel good when you're beaten up upon by somebody or you can't fight back.
Yeah.
Because, that guy's going to give you your tip after your caddy. You don't want to tell him to drop dead, because if you do, he says, oh, you told me to drop dead here. Yeah, I'm going to stiff you.
Yeah.
Same with waiters. And where I get superb service, I like to reward them exceptionally.
This reminds me, I know the story of Home Depot is well known. You talk about it a lot, but it reminds me of how you talk about the managers and associates there, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I just had a meeting Friday. I took 25 store managers and district managers to lunch. I do it once a year.
At Home Depot, I still take them to lunch.
And I have them around a big circle. We'll go to a nice restaurant. I let them off the menu, whatever they want. And we go around a room and we talk about what they like and what needs to be fixed and what's wrong. And you got to listen as much to what's wrong as to what's right, because if it's wrong, you got to fix it. But one of the things that comes through loud and clear, again and again, the positive side, the culture, how we take care of each other, how we care about our associates. I'll make a bet that of those 25 remarks from each one of them, I'll bet 75% of them focused on the culture. And that was something we developed day one. That was something we said, we're going to be mindful that the most important person in the company are the people on the floor of the stores, because they're the ones that interact with the customer. They're the ones where if they give the customer a great experience, the customer's going to remember. The waiter.
One of the things that always stuck with me, Ken, is when we met early on, you were talking about Home Depot. You were so proud of how many people you made successful by building that.
We have 3,000 people that started pushing carts in from the lot. That's about as entry level as you get. That are multi-millionaires today. And by the way,
3,000 multi-millionaires from the start.
And most of them are still working here. Now, guess what? When we went public, we had a $50 million capitalization. 50, that's all.
Wow.
Last year, we had a $400 billion
That's pretty good.
market cap.
That's real money these days.
Do the math, Joe. It's 27% compounded annually.
Wow.
From the day we went public.
That's
So
extraordinary.
these kids that hung in there, these kids, and by the way, the years of service, 30 years, 28 years, 35 years, amazing how many people, and why did they hang in there? They liked where they worked. They felt they were important. They felt that they mattered. They were rewarded. They were given opportunities for progression. All the things that motivate people, that's what we did.
That's America in a nutshell. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about fighting for America. Your book, Ken, is called I Love Capitalism.
Right.
I love the title. A cynical young person might say, of course you love capitalism. You're a billionaire. What would you say to them?
I said, but I wasn't when I started, right? I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. If I did, I never saw it. The point is, Joe, we bring a lot of people to the party with us. Think of the fact that Bernie, Arthur, and I, and Pat Farah, 4 of us, with $2 million in capital. Today, we have 500,000 associates. And by the way, last year we initiated significant pay increases for the hourlies. Our attrition rate has plunged. And that's important because you know what? Those people are now trained and they're on the floor. If you replace them with somebody new, you got to go through the whole course of indoctrinating them, orienting them, training them. That goes away. So you know what we did? We're realizing that by not having to recycle people or not having to put new people in, we're able to do so much more for our people.
So capitalism actually led you to want to give them ownership, which led you to want to make them millionaires.
Absolutely. I want them
you
all
all
to
went
be
together.
I want them all to be billionaires. I want them all to have I want them all to be like my friend Joe Lonsdale. I'm serious. That's what I want.
So Ken, you're a fighter for values you care about. You're a fighter for America. There's a lot of successful people who don't speak out. Like, what are the ways in which you're fighting, and what led you to be willing to be controversial?
Joe, no pain, no gain. I believe that it's incumbent on me, it's a moral obligation on my part, to do all I can to propagate all those things that I benefited by in this country. the most sinful thing right now in America, in my opinion, is the dire straits public education is in.
It's a mess.
I went to a public school in Long Island. I got a great education, even though I wasn't too excited about getting educated. But in spite of myself, most of it got through to me, and I benefited by it. So starting with that, I'm very passionate. I'm very supportive of the Catholic schools here in New York.
How do we fix the public education system? It's a mess. The women who used to be smart and go into it, they have other jobs now. Like how do we get talent? How do we make it work?
The teachers were brilliant. They organized themselves into a political force, and they have great sway over the politicians. There's a lot of reasons why public education is bad in America, but one of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, is a lack of quality instruction, teaching. And I think unless we address that to start with, nothing's going to change.
We got to hold the teachers accountable for
Absolutely. And you know what? There should be capitalism. There should be an incentive for those teachers.
We should make the best teachers wealthy. Yeah.
Those teachers that show results, test, an objective test, like New York State has the Regents.
Yeah.
Nobody sees that test until the morning the test is given to the students, not even the teacher. The teachers that taught Regents courses, not all courses are Regents, like math was geometry, trigonometry, history, English. Those teachers, the test results are as much for them as it is for the student.
Yeah.
Because if there's a high failure rate of those tests, you have to ask yourself the question,
What are the teachers doing?
what happened?
Yeah.
Where did the transmission of knowledge?
We have to have some kind of accountability.
Absolutely. So that's one thing. The other thing is job creation. I'm excited about the number of kids that we've hired at Home Depot, barely out of high school, 18 years old. A store, Home Depot store in Long Island, has $100 million a year revenue, one store. He's got 250 people working for him in that store. He's got an enormous responsibility in inventory and management, in positioning the company in terms of products and knowledge of the market. He's in business for himself. He could go run any business after 5 years as a Home Depot store manager. So we benefit there. We benefit, they benefit. They develop skills they never would have had a chance. So when I talk about capitalism, I'm saying right up and down the line, the more we can do to bring people to the party, the stronger the capitalistic base becomes.
No, we're only going to keep the country capitalist if we fight for everyone to win.
Kids that work at Home Depot now, they're conscious of the stock they own.
That's great.
They're conscious of what it's worth. They're conscious of what they're now able to do. One guy I'm sitting next to the other day, he's been with the company a long time. He's telling me about this big boat he's got. And I'm saying to myself, hey, that's great.
Awesome.
He comes to work in a bunch of stores every day, and at night he goes home to his boat.
You got a boat.
And that's the benefits of capitalism.
That's
There's
what you
no
want.
sin in living well.
That's what you want. I want to ask you about education one more time, because you guys did something here in New York, and you've done a lot of things in education. But the Harlem Children's Zone, I thought, was such a cool thing. So you had a part of town where the kids were some of the worst scorers in the nation, just really, really failing. And you guys did a series of things where you and our friend Stan Druckenmiller and others
Stan
helped
brought
fix
me
this.
into it early on. And for 10 years, I was chairman of this. What we did, we started with the after-school program. And Jeff woke up one day and said, wait a minute, by 3 o'clock, there's too much going wrong. We got to get these kids to go
This
to
is
school.
Jeff Canada, who's an African-American guy from Harvard.
Yeah, African-American. He founded it. And he said, we got to have a school. And now, every single kid that's going to our school has graduated from our school.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of those kids has gone on to college.
You're giving them male role models. You're teaching their parents when they're young.
Well, to the extent they have parents. A lot of these kids come from broken homes. A lot of these kids don't live in any kind of a home at all. It was shocking to me, the number of kids that we had that were homeless.
Wow.
So we take them blind. We don't care what their background is. We take them, and thank God for Stan Druckenmiller. He got into it early.
I just thought that was amazing. You took the most troubled area, one of the most troubled areas of our country, and you iterated and you worked with these kids, and you proved the kids from any background could actually succeed if you worked on them hard enough.
And by the way, now that program is being adopted all over the United States. It's amazing. Awesome. Jeff has now effectively moved on from HCC to a higher level where he's now working with communities all over the United States, because President Obama, when he heard about it, said, we got to do this all over America. It works.
That's great.
It works.
I hear the teachers' unions don't like it very much usually.
No, because, hey, when we're showing them we got the same kids they had, here are our results. Their answer is, well, they come from broken homes. And we say, yeah, that's right. That's why you got to do more.
You got to do more to help them. So someone like President Obama is smart enough to see that that works. He wants to help the kids, and yet he supports the teachers' unions who are against it. He's playing both sides. How does that work?
Hey, Joe, politics is politics.
It's complicated, huh?
And, well, it's where is his bread buttered?
He's getting money from one side, so he can't fight him.
If he has a school teachers, don't forget this, what, 380,000 or some huge number, at $80 a month dues. Think of the amount of money they can throw into the political
And that's
process.
all going to help his party, so he can't really fight him.
That's going to help who feathers their nest for them.
Yeah.
That's what it's all. Who's being compromised are the kids. Look at the Catholic schools here in New York. Look at the results from the Catholic schools. And by the way, in New York, kids that go to religious-based schools get zero support from the state.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We get, I think we get 27. HCZ gets $27,000 to $28,000 per student from the state of New York.
Well, that's why it's working better then. Yeah.
Well, because we could. And by the way, we have bonus programs for teachers. We have an extra period of time at the end of school. The kids have to go. We have summer school that's mandatory for kids that are failing to bring them up to speed.
That's
so
great.
we're making the effort, and we're spending the money. And as I said, Jeff was the creator, but he had the wisdom and I guess the good fortune to latch on to Stanley early on.
Yep.
And what Stanley has done here, and Stanley brought me and other people in.
Well, what you guys have done is amazing there. I want to switch over, Ken. You're a fighter. You fight for what you believe is right. In the early 2000s, you had a front page showdown with the New York Attorney General Eliot Spitzer. You were the chairman of the New York Stock Exchange at the time.
No, I was chairman of the comp committee.
So you were chairman of the New York Stock Exchange Comp Committee at the time. That's right. And he was going after Wall Street to make a name for himself. The typical thing people do is they back down, they settle.
Well, most of them did.
Yeah. Why'd you take the fight to Spitzer? Why'd you
Because it
stand
was
up?
wrong. We did it legit. More importantly, we were not a for-profit. We were not a not-for-profit. So we weren't under his jurisdiction.
Yep.
We paid sales taxes. We paid insurance. We paid, income taxes. We paid real estate taxes. Charities don't pay any of those things.
Yeah.
We made one year a couple $100 million for the exchange. We paid big federal taxes and state taxes. He comes after us because at that time, this is right around when Enron blew up. The big issue was how much these guys were making.
They didn't want people making too much money.
Well, here's where they all blew it. The typical New York Stock Exchange chairman came from outside the industry. So a fellow by the name of Mel Batten, who was a retired CEO of JCPenney, he served for 5 years as chairman.
Yep.
Bill Donaldson, who had been on the board of Philip Morris, and he founded Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette. He served for 10 years. We had SERP and CES. We had these plans for paying people. When Dick Grasso got the job, he was the first person to start at the very bottom and go to the very top. He started as an $82.50 a week clerk.
Wow.
Union clerk.
A union clerk on Wall Street.
He had 40 plus years of service. When you look at what it did with the payout, it drove the number through the roof, but that was the deal that was made.
Yep.
It was in place. All of a sudden, I had these captains of industry. I might have been there. I'm not sure I was there. I don't know if I knew about this. I think I might have known about it.
People just afraid to say they knew.
They were
about it.
terrified by Spitzer. They were terrified.
No one wanted to stand up to him.
I asked one of them, a good man. I said, how can you say you don't know? You knew everything. He said, I know. But he said, Spitzer's a bad guy. And if he comes and gets you, you're going to be in trouble. I said, well, he's coming for me. Let's see how much trouble I get in. And I took him on, and you know what? I whipped his ass like he was a rented mule.
It reminds me today of how they came after Elon Musk for getting paid too much. The judge tried to
Good for him.
take out the deal. He's fighting back,
fought,
right?
No, well, there's an example. And old Eliot, the only thing I regret that it ended. I was having more fun, and more importantly, my legal bills were all covered by D&O insurance.
Oh, that's funny. So you keep fighting.
Oh, I'd have gone on as Dick Grasso.
But he tried to put you in big trouble after you stood up to him. What did he do to you after you stood up to him?
His claim was that I misled the other members of the comp committee about Grasso's pay package. Well, I had a very interesting practice. I kept very strong records of who showed up for the meetings. People that were on that committee that didn't show up for a meeting where we were going to go over Grasso's pay package,
Yep.
I would have the head of HR go to their office with all the information in their office for as long as it took, go down and give them all the information. And I had proof that every single one of them knew everything that was going on.
Wow.
And in the case of one guy, this is a great story. I love it. For his deposition, I showed up. And he says, "What are you doing here?" I said, Martha Stewart went to jail for lying. And she wasn't even under oath.
Yep.
You're going to be under oath.
And I have the evidence.
And if as soon as you lie, I'm going right down to the U.S. Attorney's office and say, "Lock him up. This guy's lying. Here's the proof." He said, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "I'm doing it for one reason and one reason alone." Now, let me give you a little bit of the flavor. Dick Grasso's lawyer, who I call Luca Brazzi, the mafia guy, his name was Gershon Zweifach, wonderful guy. He was a partner at Williams and Connolly in Washington. He's interviewing this guy, and he said, "How would you describe Grasso as a CEO? Best I've ever seen. What flaws did he have?" He says, "I really would have trouble thinking about any flaws he had. Did he perform his duties with integrity and bring good credit to the institution?" "Oh, by all means." So he's going on and on and on about all the great things. So now Gerson very theatrically takes his hands, takes his glove off, his glasses off, rubs his eyes like this, and says to the court reporter, "Would you read back all the questions I asked Mr. So-and-so and read his answers?" So she reads back, "What kind of CEO was he? The best I've ever seen, blah, 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 blah." And he says to the witness, he says, "Is there anything there you'd like to change?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, tell me then, why'd you fire him?" And the answer, "I don't know." That was his answer.
It's because he was afraid of Spitzer is the real answer.
Terrified. Don't forget, he was going around swearing he was going to close places up. He was going to bankrupt them. This guy was, you talk about hubris, and I want to tell you something. When I kicked his ass, I so enjoyed it. It was more fun, and it was worth every nickel the insurance company had to pay. My bill was $23 million, my legal bill.
Wow.
Grasso's was 27, and all the other directors was 40. $90 million, the insurance company.
This guy still became governor afterwards anyway.
Oh, he became governor.
And somebody hired a private investigator and found him doing horrible
things.
things.
And they blamed me.
No,
Joe, honest to God, I learned the day he announced that he was caught with a hooker.
Yep.
That very day was the day that I learned about him going to the Grand Central Post Office on his own as governor.
Yeah.
He's waiting in line as governor to buy a $2,800 money order. And the guy that was in back of him, I'm having a drink with the same night that they announced that he was quitting.
Yeah.
And he tells me, "Hey," he said, "I couldn't figure out why he was waiting in line, and he bought a $2,800 because he was standing so close to him, we could hear what he wanted." So I go down to this. Dick Grasso always hosted every year a dinner for the Medal of Honor recipients, and I was always invited to be co-chairman with him. And we went down, and the media was right in that little bastard Grasso. He goes in the back door because he knows the media's there. Stupid me, I go in the front door. Well, they got these booms with the mics.
Yeah.
And he says, the guy says to me, "How do you feel about what happened?" I said, "I feel very good." "Why?" I said, "Well, because look, he was found out. I always knew he was a bad guy."
Yeah.
So I'm walking away, and he says, the guy says, "Well, you got anything else you want to say?" I said, "Yeah." I said, all of us have our own private hells. I just hope his is hotter than everybody else's.
He's a bad guy.
And that's a quote. Oh, he was a bad. And I tell you something. If he ever sticks his head up again, I got more. I hope he does. All of a sudden there was a big letdown. It was like after you work hard to do something and you get it done and you're all done. You say, "Oh my God, look at the void now. What am I going to do?"
Are you seeing, Ken? It seems like there's more of that weaponization going on today than even 20 years ago. He's clearly weaponizing things. It seems like it's much more common now.
Absolutely.
It's scary, right?
It's a political weapon.
Yeah.
Everything has been politicized in him. Joe, there should be nothing political about the fact that our kids are getting inferior educations in public schools.
Yeah.
That has no room in the political arena.
You're not interested in making this political. You just want to
I
fix
don't want
it.
to blame anybody. I want to just fix it. I want the kid to have the same chance I had when I was a young kid and going to a public high school. In spite of the fact that I didn't work very hard, when I look back, I said, geez, I really learned a lot.
Yeah, you learned a lot from the public high school. You did work hard once you were out of school.
Oh, when I realized, hey, this is the real play, this is the real main event, I better get off my ass and get working.
Your philanthropy, we talked about a couple of things. You know, I think last year you made news. You gave another $200 million to NYU Langone Medical School to make it tuition free. Why'd you do that?
Joe, in the year 2030, that's 6 years.
Yep.
America's going to be short 50,000 primary care physicians, 30,000 pediatricians, and 30,000 OBGYN. Going to be short 110,000 doctors in just those specialties. Why those specialties? Because they don't make very much money in those specialties.
Yep.
So a kid leaving medical school with a $300,000 debt is going to say, I want to go into ophthalmology, I want to go into orthopedics, I want to go into cardiovascular. They're averting, they're staying away from those three areas I mentioned.
Paying for their tuition, they can go into the key areas.
If they want to be with babies, they haven't got to worry about paying medical school debt, or they haven't got to worry. So what my whole motive, well, first of all, it was not my idea. In 2007, when Bob Grossman took over as dean, the day he was inaugurated, he and I were walking back to his office. And I said, okay, Bob, this is your first day on the job. What's your dream? He said, I really would love it if one day we could, he was a poor kid from the Bronx.
Yeah.
One day I would love it if we could have tuition free for our kids. And he cited the reasons. I said, Bob, I don't know when we're going to do it, but let's make a deal. We're going to do it. So we decided that day. Now, it took us 13 years to raise all that money. Because don't forget, you're talking about 400 students a year. Each class is 100. And we also opened a school out in Long Island now for primary care. In other words, if you go to that medical school out there, you're being educated and trained to be a primary care physician. There's 26 kids. So there's 100 kids. So there's 500 kids a year that were paying their tuition. So we needed almost $1 billion.
Yeah.
And we raised it.
Wow.
And my wife and I felt very strongly that this was the right thing to do. This is the thing that would most put America in a good position of anything we could do with our money. That's why we did it.
It's amazing for America and for New York.
Well, and then I got to tell you, the real payoff, about 7 months ago, one of our trustees called me and said her mother-in-law would like to sit with me and talk to me. I said, sure, bring her in. Her name is Ruth Gottesman. She was on the board of Albert Einstein. And she came in to see me in my office, and she said to me, can you tell me the experience you had by setting up free tuition at NYU? And I said, I can't think of anything that's given me more satisfaction in my life than that program. I said, the sense of worth, it's the one thing that I can say my financial success is really accomplishing something for humanity. I said, I urge you to be part of an effort to do it. She did better than that. 2 months ago, April or May, I guess it was, they announced she's given them $1 billion to set up a tuition-free school at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So their kids all go tuition-free. So the fact that we became a role model for other people, I hope every medical school does it.
I think that's really inspiring. I got to ask you one tough question about this because I'm curious. So UCLA recently, we saw that school's really been taken over by ideologues, and they're graduating a lot of people who are not competent doctors. They're bringing the wrong people in. A lot of these schools in America right now, it seems like they're being conquered by ideologues who have the wrong things in mind. They're not focused on merit. How do you keep the culture of these schools you're sponsoring focused on merit? How do you make sure that nonsense doesn't come out?
Well, for example, I'll give you a for instance. We had a group of students come to us asking us to go to a fail pass system.
Yep.
We said, no, we're not going to do that. Why? These kids work their asses off. Some of them work harder than others. Some of them more able than others.
Yeah.
When these kids go out for the match, where they go to their specialty and residencies, if all the committee sees, whoever they're being considered, pass or fail, The only safe assumption to make it pass is at the lower end of the rung.
Exactly. So it hurts the best kids.
It hurts the best kids, and it doesn't help the less best kids. The second thing is that they wanted us to give up our chapter of AOA. AOA is the equivalent of Phi Beta Kappa in medical school. And we said, no way. These kids that have worked their asses off, that are gifted, that get that designation, they're worthy of it.
How do you make sure these places stay that way, then don't get conquered later on? Like, it's just leadership? What is it?
Joe, that's the age-old question. How does Henry Ford, when he set up the Ford Foundation, make sure that the Ford Foundation sticks to what he had in mind? It's not the case. Right now, I'm about to engage with Elaine, where we want to create a program in free speech.
That's great.
How do I make sure 100 years from now that institute that we're going to create is balanced?
Even 20 years from now.
10 years,
Yeah.
balanced. How do I make sure that the kids hear this side of the argument and that side of the argument, and they make their own mind up after that? That's what free speech should be all about. An argument of ideas. I have my ideas, you have yours. Here's how I defend mine. Here's how you defend yours.
We need some bold people willing to be controversial, right? These people are all afraid. They back down.
Look, conventionalism is alive and well. Nobody wants to be the odd man out. Frankly, believe it or not, by being willing to be the odd man out, me, I'm now the big guy in. People come to me and they want to talk to me about this. Guys like you,
Well,
prominent.
I'm following your lead,
No,
Ken.
prominent, successful, powerful guys like Joe Lonsdale says, "Can we do a blog?" And hell, I'm saying, "Wow."
when I see you out there, I realize it's okay to speak out. It's okay. It's okay to be strong.
You know what? As long as your motives are solid and as long as they're meant to benefit mankind, who can fault you? I'm saying these poor kids that are performing at 5th grade level get high school diplomas. These kids are performing at 5th grade level in math and English, two basic areas of education. We fail those kids. They're out in the world. Take the Chinese. The Chinese are going the exact opposite way with their children.
Let's focus a little bit on the future at the end here. Yeah. You're a student of history and markets. We do seem to be at a very precarious moment in time. We have record debt. We have persistent inflation, geopolitical challenges. What's your macro outlook, and what do we do here?
Joe, it can't go on forever. And when it ends, it's going to be ugly. Today, you know, I talked earlier off camera, we talked about defense. We talked about our competitive defense.
Yeah.
Today, Joe, we spend more money to service the debt. We spend interest alone $1 trillion. That's more than we spend on our military to defend us and protect us.
Yep.
And that number goes bigger every year.
Yep.
It's compound interest in reverse for us.
Yep.
Now, how do we stop it? I'm sure there's going to be some pain. I'm sure, for example, guys like you and me, the irony of it is, Joe, they can take all the people like you and me and put us all together.
Take all our money.
And punish.
Yeah.
It's a spit in the ocean.
Yeah, take all our money. We're still in massive, massive debt and deficit.
You don't solve the problem unless you hit the little guy, because there's billions of them and there's hundreds of us.
Well, maybe we could turn down the spending instead a little bit. Huh?
Well, Joe, that's exactly that's a good start. But that doesn't, cutting back, for example, the education department. Look at when the education department was founded. Look at the results of education from when it was founded till now. It's gone downhill.
Well, it's not really an education department. It's a special interest department.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So there's a case where we have to be objective and we have to be brutal in terms of being fair and saying, what are we gaining for what we're spending? I shouldn't get so... Joe, I have a charming life with everything I could imagine a human being could want. And I get a check from the government every month for $3,600. Something's wrong with that system.
Maybe we need to stop paying the rich people Social Security.
I should cut me off. I won big. You know, if I walk into a room down in Florida where there's a lot of retired guys, and I say, hey, you hear they're going to put a new rule in that if you own 2 homes, you're ineligible for Social Security. They throw the cards up in the air. They can't do that. It's my money. I'm getting my money back. No, Joe. We all have to have skin in the game. My wife and I together get close to $5,500 a month.
You did pay into the system, but I understand what you're saying.
Not
You don't
bullshit.
Need it.
I won.
Yeah.
You buy life. You buy fire insurance on your house.
Yep.
Thank God at the end of the year you don't put a claim in.
That's insurance.
The insurance company doesn't give you the premium back. The insurance company said, we took the risk.
Yep.
I got the benefit of having risk covered.
Yep.
I didn't need it. I shouldn't get anything.
Yeah.
Look, we have to start thinking
You have to start
more.
finding ways to cut all the different places.
We have to start thinking about we instead of me.
Yeah. So, sorry, what can we cut from ourselves? What are we getting that we don't need that we could figure?
And by the way, ideologues are on both sides of the equation.
That's fair.
Okay? And I think what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Like I've had people say, "Oh, you're like them." No, I'm not like them. I'm a realist. My country needs me to do more.
Yep.
I want to do more in a way that it benefits all those people who can't do more.
That's what a leader does. Is they give from themselves more.
You feed the troops.
Our
Military has a simple rule: you feed the troops before you feed the officers. Okay?
Yep.
They're the ones that win the wars for you. Those kids that went on the beach, June 6, 1944, on Omaha Beach, those are the kids that won the war.
How old were you when they won?
I was 9 years old, and I have a cousin that was in that day. He had over 15 months from March of 43 until November of 44. He got 2 Silver Stars and he got 2 Bronze Stars.
Wow.
He was a poor kid from Brooklyn, diminutive kid, small kid. When he came back, I asked him what it was like. He said, it was great. He said, every time I kill somebody over there, they gave me a medal. He said, if I kill somebody in Brooklyn, they put me in jail.
That sounds like a rough guy.
But these kids, they're the kids that won the war for us.
They did.
They're the reason we have our freedom. They made it happen.
It was the greatest generation.
They were the greatest generation. And what are we doing? We're frittering away what they give their lives up for. That's what we're doing.
So, Ken, we started American Optimist, this podcast, to push back a little bit on the cynicism that's facing America. What's the best case to be optimistic about the future of America?
The best case is parents wake up and realize we got to start. A ball of string has an end. Sometimes it's hard to find the end. I believe the biggest payoff comes if we address public education in America as a first priority and go from there. We start, though, by saying, all right, we're all committed. We've got these publics. By the way, Joe, you go to the North Shore of Long Island, the education in the public schools on the North Shore of Long Island are the equivalent of the best prep schools in America.
So they are really good some places.
Yeah, because first of all, the Board of Education of each one of those schools is independent. So, for example, all the Great Neck schools, so the Board of Education, all of whom are parents for the most part, when they start to see something slide or something bad, they go bananas. So you take Roslyn, Great Neck, Herricks, Garden City, Manhasset, you take all those schools, those kids get into the finest colleges in the country. Their SAT scores are through the roof.
So you've proven it could be done in Harlem in the toughest area. You've proven it could be
We're
done
proving
elsewhere.
it. Look, we know these kids truly deserve to be treated equally. They can be taught just like the brightest white kid, and we're proving it.
I love it. Well, Ken, you're a great American. It's amazing what you've done for our country. I hope you keep fighting for us.
Joe, I wake up every morning, and when I put my American flag pin on my lapel, I look up at the ceiling and I say, Grandma and Grandpa, thanks for coming to America. That's how I feel. I'm a grateful American who can never do enough for the country that's been so good to me.
That's a great note to end it on. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you for having me, Joe.